Marco Vicenzino is a global strategy advisor. He joins us from New York. Marco, it's good to have you with us. We discussed the role of the Western countries in Syria's future with our diplomatic editor. Outside of Western countries, outside of Western Europe and the U.S., what are the countries, especially in the Middle East, that will matter most to Syria's future?
Let's say, obviously, Turkey, which shares a over 900-kilometer border with Syria. They can be it appears to be the biggest winner of the current situation, but everything depends. If things don't go well in Syria, Turkey will pay the highest price. You also have Saudi Arabia in terms of financial aid and also in terms of energy, very, very much important. And then also you have, other countries. I would say Qatar, a very, very central role. Primarily the countries of the Gulf, and I would say Turkey in terms of the region around it. And then obviously you have the external players, the Western countries with the sanctions and the influence that they have with the international financial institutions such as the IMF, the World Bank. And then there's also a question would be is what role will the East Asians play? You're looking at countries like Korea, South Korea, Japan, China, and that's much more subject to debate. Many of these global powers in the Middle East, the core of their interests lie in the Gulf countries, where the energy producing countries, Saudi Arabia, UAE, Qatar. And the key thing is that what interest do they have in Syria? And I think primarily Syria, it's the security issue for many of the external powers to make sure there's a stable Syria and there's not spillover of security threats into the region and beyond.
Okay, well, that is exactly what I wanted to ask you. What do they want? What is their interest? I think if we go from the top of the list, first country you mentioned, Turkey, it's pretty transparent, right? They want to contain or eliminate in what is, in their view, a threat from Kurdish armed groups along their border. And they have said that if Syria and the new administration doesn't help them get there, they will launch a military offensive themselves. So let's just leave Turkey out of the equation. I think we have the answers on that for the moment. You said Saudi and Qatar, as far as the region is concerned, are important. Their interests are security, you said. How do they get that?
Maybe just one element on the Turkish issue.
Sure.
It's also over 3 million refugees. It's not just a Kurdish issue, but it's also 3 million refugees. That's proven a liability for the ruling AK party. Now, if we move to the further region, is in Saudi. Saudi, yes, much of it is security, and then also for Saudi in particular in the Gulf, there's also drug trafficking issues such as the trade of Captagon, which has taken its toll in the Gulf region, and also there's an element in terms of influence, things that can come out of Syria. Many of the Gulf states, primarily Saudi and UAE, have had their vast differences historically with Islamist movements that they've seen as an existential threat to the monarchies. And as a result, they want to make sure that Syria will not become a base for exporting that type of ideology to the Gulf region and beyond.
So how will they achieve that? Because when, going back to the days not that long ago when Russia and Iran wanted influence in Syria, how they achieved that was by putting boots on the ground. I don't think Saudi's going to do that. There's no talk of that. How do Saudi, since you mentioned Saudi and the UAE, how do they achieve, how do they advance further their interests?
Economic leverage. Remember, Iran is now gone. It's largely gone from Syria, particularly as an energy source. And in Syria, they desperately need energy. And Saudi can play a very, very, very important role in that. So there's a degree of there's pragmatism and political reality. Yes, the Saudis accept the fact that the HT-led government is on the ground, it's in power, and it's a reality. But at the same time, they want to make sure that any leverage that they have can be used to guarantee their interests. Once again, it's that security issue, exporting of types of ideology that they find a threat to them, to their existence, and also the fact is that Syria, the stability in Syria is not just about the immediate region. It's beyond. You have the Saudi relationship with the U.S., which is a key role. So you have diplomatic relations that go beyond just the bilateral Saudi-Syria relations or UAE-Saudi-Syrian relations. So this is a complex game. It's not just about what's happening in Syria alone. It's about its impact in the region and relations and ties with powers that go beyond, who are impacted by what's happening, and then also have interests within. Once again, we go back to the U.S. factor, having 2,000 troops in eastern Syria. Their main concern is preventing a resurgence of ISIL forces. So this is a complex geopolitical game that goes beyond just Syria and the region.
And Marco Vicenzino, global strategy advisor. Thank you for joining us on the NewsHour.
Thank you.